One of my New Year's resolutions when it comes to video making has been to start creating analysis videos solely dedicated to characters as well as stories in media. I have spoken about specific characters in my comparison videos before, but I don't think I've ever dedicated a whole video solely to the analysis of a single character. And since one of my more popular comparison videos was dedicated to Prince Zuko, I figured I might start off this new series by discussing his sister, Princess Azula. Azula is, without a doubt, one of my favourite villains of all time. She's despicable, powerful, and an evil genius, but at the same time, she's a lot more complex than her dastardly outward persona first lets on. While I've spoken about redemption arcs when it comes to characters like Prince Zuko, Azula is, by contrast, a tragic villain who by the end generates sympathy while still remaining unredeemed. But what makes her so devious and yet still humanised and tragic? Well, let's talk about it. Azula was the younger child of the show's big bad, Fire Lord Ozai, and it's quite clear she was the golden child to Zuko's black sheep. Becoming a firebending prodigy at a young age, Ozai clearly favoured her and intended for her to be his true successor, while neglecting older son Zuko. A lot of Azula's nature can pretty much be explained by how she was raised. Despite being Ozai's favoured child, he was a cold and unloving father, thus treated her more like a perfect pawn instead of showing her real love or affection, while her mother's affection mostly went to Zuko as she pitied him and grew distant from Azula as she began to act too much like her cruel father. Azula grew up as a child who was doted upon and trained to be the perfect successor to the throne, but at the same time was never shown any real love, turning her into a cold, selfish manipulator who could only achieve worth and happiness through claiming power. Azula first truly joined the story in Season 2, where she effectively takes over the role of antagonist from Zuko, and the show makes it clear that she is both smarter and more powerful than her brother. While her first job is to capture Zuko and Iroh, Azula soon turns her sight towards doing what her brother never could, capturing the Avatar. Azula enlists the help of her friends Mei and Ty Lee. While Mei is shown to be an icy, melancholic goth girl, Ty Lee's introduction is an interesting look into both her and Azula's character. She is living a pleasant life working for a circus when Azula shows up and asks for her assistance. Ty Lee is hesitant, but as Azula watches her performance, she sends a bit of a message to her by making the act a lot more dangerous. Azula doesn't need to say anything else at this point. Ty Lee not only gets the message, but puts on a facade of changing her mind independently rather than admitting her fear of what Azula could do. It's a fascinating example of just how much their friendship is simply built on fear rather than true platonic connection. Throughout the season, Azula continuously proves herself to be both powerful and manipulative, proving a formidable foe to Team Avatar, and gradually taking over the Earth Kingdom, even infiltrating the capital of Ba Sing Se and outsmarting previously dominant political mastermind Long Feng, proving herself to be the superior mastermind while giving us, honestly, one of the best lines in this entire series.
You've beaten me at my own game.
Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Zuko, who has spent the entire series questioning his position in the Fire Nation, especially given his terrible relationship with his sister, is reunited with her in the season finale. Despite his development, Azula is still able to get into his head and convince him to return. In the climactic battle, Azula almost kills Aang with her lightning bending, and she and Zuko return victorious to the Fire Nation, with Azula claiming that it was Zuko who managed to kill him, to ensure that, should he return alive as she suspects, she can shift blame to him instead. In spite of her sneaky behaviour, Azula and Zuko remain allied, which brings me to a particular episode that, while seemingly a filler episode, does provide a lot of interesting character study for Azula. That episode being The Beach. The beach sees Azula and the gang visiting the royal family's old beach house. The group decides to interact with the locals, and we see Azula attempting to socialise, and not exactly doing a very good job of it.
That's a sharp outfit, Chan. careful, you could puncture the hull of an Empire-class Fire Nation battleship, leaving thousands to drown at sea. Because it's so sharp.
Despite these scenes being amusing, there is something quite tragic about it all. Azula has spent her entire life lying and manipulating people. While she is excellent at political talk and intimidation, it turns out she genuinely doesn't know how to simply interact with people in a casual manner. And she is aware of it, given she seems jealous of Ty Lee's natural charisma. What on the surface appears to be a funny episode of a supervillain trying and failing to simply socialize with normal people is in fact a tragic look at a girl so consumed with a desire to control others and gain power that she flat out doesn't know how to actually make friends with people. And it's this weakness that would ultimately lead to Azula's downfall. Zuko eventually abandons the group, choosing to join Team Avatar and fight against them. Later, he attempts to infiltrate the Boiling Rock, a Fire Nation prison, to help Sokka rescue his father. It's here that Azula's downfall truly begins, thanks to an unlikely source. Despite the fact that she has only ever been portrayed as the gloomy goth girl tagging along with Azula, May of all people is the one who puts the descent into motion. As she still has feelings for Zuko, she helps him escape from the prison, disobeying Azula's orders. When confronted, she bluntly explains that she loves Zuko more than she fears Azula. Azula prepares to strike her down, but Ty Lee jumps in to save her. Azula orders they be taken away and locked up, but the damage is still done. Azula has led her entire life controlling people through fear and manipulation, and as I said, has never truly known how to befriend people. Seeing two allies she considered the closest thing she had to friends betray her is a huge blow to Azula's worldview. Her power has always come from controlling people through fear, so seeing her two prized minions not only turn against her, but turning against her for the sake of her brother, who she's always viewed as inferior, unleashes a wave of self-doubt and damages her trust in people. The 4-part series finale sees Fire Lord Ozai attempting to use the power of Sozin's comet to burn the Earth Kingdom to cinders. Before departing, however, he orders Azula to remain behind in the Fire Nation, becoming the new Fire Lord. While she seems pleased, it's clear that this is a hollow victory, as Ozai's new position as Phoenix King would render the Fire Lord position redundant, and he is denying her a place in his supposed great victory despite it having been her idea. As Azula prepares for her coronation, she begins to flat out lose her mind. Feeling she can't trust anyone anymore, she banishes anyone who so much as looks at her funny. Desperately trying to prepare alone, she begins to imagine her mother Ursa speaking to her. Ursa, presumably the voice of Azula's subconscious at this point, confirms that she's losing it because May and Ty Lee's betrayal has shattered her trust in people and her worldview. Azula insists that trust is for fools and fear is the only way to get what you want, but knows that this isn't true. May said so herself, that her love was stronger than her fear. And if there's one thing Azula just flat out isn't capable of, it's showing love. She insists her mother has always feared her, but Ursa replies that she really does love her deep down. And given this is all taking place in Azula's head, it's possible that deep down this is what she always wanted. While Azula was always more talented and capable than Zuko, the one thing he had that she never did was a strong loving bond with their mother, and the ability to give and receive love in ways she just couldn't. And now, that one advantage he always had, that one advantage that she was deep down always jealous of, is what's allowing him to beat her. When Zuko finally arrives and challenges her for the throne, Azula agrees to one final Agni Kai duel. And surprisingly enough, she starts to lose. Azula has always been portrayed as one of the world's greatest firebenders, with Zuko forever being behind. However, not only is Azula's mind breaking, but Zuko has finally improved thanks to his work with Aang, leaving her distraught that he's gained even more of an advantage. Seeing she only has one shot left, she summons her lightning bending but fires it at Katara. Zuko's biggest advantage is, after all, the support and friendship of others, so she tries to take it out. Zuko jumps in front and takes the blow, while Azula, out of her mind and raging, chases down Katara. Quick thinking and level-headed, Katara uses her waterbending to imprison Azula, chaining her up before saving Zuko. And as the two of them look down upon her, all she can do is scream and flail and sob uncontrollably. It's a far cry from the cold, powerful villain we're so used to, but it's precisely what makes her so tragic. Azula had become so comfortable living the lifestyle of the golden child who could control everything and everyone using fear and intimidation, that the second they proved they were no longer afraid of her, she had nothing else to fall back on. Her father only saw her as a weapon to mould into a successor. Deep down, he was all she had left, but he merely saw her as a prop in his legacy. While Azula was too cruel and callous to be redeemed, she was still a tragic villain in the end. One of the key purposes of tragic villains is to serve as a reminder of how easy it can be to fall down the wrong path. Azula will always serve as a reminder of what Zuko could have been. If he'd simply not spoken out of turn at that meeting, or had captured Aang and presented him to Ozai, then he could have ended up just like her. And at the same time, if Ozai had shown her the love she needed and raised her as a daughter and not a weaponized successor, she could have turned out like Zuko. But instead, her story tragically ends with her alone and defeated, having lost her power and her mind, sobbing hysterically. At which point, we all realise that this despicable, terrifying villain built up over the years was, deep down, a sad teenage girl who just wanted her father's love and approval, who was ultimately defeated by her brother after he realised that both of them deserved better. Thanks for watching the video. As I say, I'd like to make more character analysis based videos in future, so if you have any suggestions for characters whose story arcs you think are worthy of analysis, for better or for worse, then be sure to let me know down below. Otherwise, as always, like, share and subscribe and donate to me on Patreon if you can, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Goodbye!